The Articles of the Constitution. Article 4. The States. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today we'll be discussing Article 4 of the Constitution, which basically talks about states' relationships with other states and, of course, the federal government. So, as we start off here, we are going to be talking about the Full Faith and Credit Clause, which states full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. And the Congress may by general laws prescribes the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved and the effect thereof. What does this mean? So, here's what it breaks down to it ensures that states respect and honor the state laws and court orders of other states, even when their own laws are different. For example, if people in Pennsylvania get married, divorced, or adopt children here in Pennsylvania, and let's say they move to, I don't know, West Virginia, then West Virginia must recognize those actions as valid, even if the marriage or divorce would not have been possible under West Virginia law. Likewise, if a court in one state orders a person to pay money or to stop a certain behavior, the court in the other state must recognize and enforce that state's order as well. Our next clause is the Privileges and Immunity Clause. And basically, what this is it's a guarantee that states cannot discriminate against citizens of other states, and that those states must give people from other states the same fundamental rights it gives its own citizens. For example, Arizona cannot prohibit New Mexico residents from traveling, owning property, or working in Arizona, nor can the state impose substantially different taxes on residents and non residents. But there is a distinction between resident and non resident, especially for my friends out there who are hunters and fishermen. Because if you've ever gone fishing or hunting in another state, you know that you pay an entirely different cost for a license than in state people. The Interstate Rendition Clause specifically deals with establishing rules for when an alleged criminal flees to another state. It provides that the second state is obligated to return said fugitive to the state where the crime was committed. Now, the process used to return fugitives, which is known as extradition, was first created by Congress and originally enforced by the governors of each state. Today, courts enforce the return of accused prisoners. Fugitives do not have to be charged with the crime in the first state in order to be captured in the second and sent back. Once returned, the state can charge the accused with any crime for which there is evidence. The Fugitive Slave Clause gave slave owners a nearly absolute right to recapture runaway slaves who fled to another state, even if slavery was outlawed in that state. This also meant that states' laws and free states intended to protect those runaway slaves were unconstitutional because they interfered with the slave owner's right to the slave's return. Now, this was all nullified by the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery and prohibited involuntary servitude, which was nullified by this provision. The next clause under Article 4 is the New State Clause. And basically, what this means, and you can read it right there, but what this means is that Congress can admit new states into the Union, but a single state cannot create a new state within its boundaries. For example, the state of New York cannot make New York City a separate state. In addition, two states or parts of a state cannot become states without the consent of the various state legislatures and Congress. Although the original version of the Constitution included a requirement that each new state join the Union on equal footing with the other states, the language was removed before the document was approved. Nevertheless, Congress has always granted new state rights equal to those of existing states. The property clause and the claims clause are pretty much one paragraph. And if you look there, you can read that while I'm talking. But basically, what we're saying here is that not all of the lands that are owned or controlled by the United States are states. Some lands are indeed territories, and Congress has the power to sell off or regulate those territories. This includes allowing U.S. territories to become independent nations, as was done with the Philippines, or regulating the affairs of current U.S. territories like the District of Columbia, Guam, or Puerto Rico. In addition, this provision gave Congress the power to set rules for lands owned by the United States, such as national parks and national forests. The last sentence of the clause makes sure that nothing in the Constitution would harm the rights of either the federal government or the states in disputes over the said property. And finally, we come to the Guarantee Clause, which is attributed to James Madison. Um, it's not widely interpreted, but scholars think it ensures that each state be run as a representative democracy as opposed to a monarchy or a dictatorship. Courts, however, have been reluctant to specify what exactly a republican form of government means, leaving that decision exclusively to Congress. This section also gives Congress the power to protect the states from invasion by a foreign country or from significant violent uprisings within each state. It also authorizes the legislature of each state to request federal help with riots or other domestic violence. That's a wrap for Article 4. Make sure you submit your worksheet.